Evening everyone, welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Jess Rose. How you all doing? I hope you're all okay out there. Oh, I've been looking at some stories this week. I've spotted three, one of which I'm going to tell you tonight. The one that I want to tell you, these are all quite not old but older crimes that you might not have heard of. I certainly hadn't, and I just want to get everything together for you. So it is really late, I know it is, and I am so tired, but I really wanted, I got everything together for this story and I didn't want to wait till tomorrow, so I thought I'd descend on your YouTube notifications now. Well, once I've done the story, see how tired I am. See, I'm yabbering. But okay, the story I want to do for you. Oh, and it's awful. It's a horrible story. It genuinely is. They all are. I always say it. But just the depths of human depravity, always. Just, they shouldn't shock me anymore, but they always still do. They always, with every story I'm looking at doing for you, it's always like, God, did that really happen? It's just, they're just shocking. Okay, so tonight's story is the story of Anita Cobby. Now, Anita, we go back to Sunday, February 2nd, 1986 for this story. Now, Anita is the daughter of Grace and Gary Lynch. Lovely girl. You know, anyone who talks about her on this particular program I was watching said she's just lovely. I mean, she was stunning. She was actually called in 1979, I believe it was, Miss Western Suburbs. Now, this story, well, Anita was from, it's called Blacktown in west of Sydney in Australia. And yeah, so she was Miss Western Suburbs 1979. Really pretty, and she could have really gone into anything, but her mum Grace was a nurse, and she just followed her footsteps. But I think no one was surprised at that, because she really was just such a genuine, caring girl. Now, Anita was married to a man called John Cobby, and he was also a nurse. And they were together a few years, but after, like I say, after a few years, and they'd done a trip around Europe, they weren't getting on anymore, and it started to fall apart. So they ended up separating, but they remained friendly. It was said, you know, there was no animosity between them. I think it just shows, I don't know much of him, so I'm not taking away from him, but I'm just saying from what I've heard of her, it just shows what a lovely woman she was. And, you know, they stayed really amicable. They didn't even have kids. Not that that's been documented anywhere. They didn't have children. And, you know, still stay friendly. I think it's just lovely. You know, so Anita, like I say, she went into nursing. She worked with a lady by the name of Lynn Bradshaw. And Lynn said about Anita, she said she wasn't the type of nurse that would just know if someone had high blood pressure, or, you know, they'd had a heart attack. You know, she didn't just know the basics about a patient. She knew ins and outs. She asked them about their families. You know, she had real interest in her patients. You know, she just a really lovely girl. Now, remember I said it goes back to Sunday, February 2nd, 1986. So this is where we're really starting from. Anita finished work on this particular evening about, I think it was about 7 o'clock or something. I'm not too sure what time she finished, but they, Anita, the lady Lynn, and another woman, Elaine, they all worked together, and they all agreed to go for a couple of drinks and some food. So that's what they do. And they've got work the next day, so it's not a big night out or anything. It's just, it's just dinner and a couple of drinks after work. It's not late when they finish up. So Lynn offers Anita a lift to the train station, and Anita accepts, and they get there, and I think Lynn said she asked her about how she was going to get home on the other side. I think once she gets off the train, she's got about 2 kilometres to go, and she says, "Oh, I'll phone my dad and I'll get him to come and pick me up." So that was it. They parted company. Lynn went home and Anita got on the train. Now, when Anita gets to the other side, she phones her dad. No, she doesn't. Sorry. She goes to phone her dad, but the phone's not working in the train station. Remember, it's before the age of mobiles, so that was the only way she could get in contact with him, and she was looking around. There was no taxis available, so she decides to walk, and it's only about two kilometres, like I say, from the train station. So although it's February, which is winter for us, over in Australia, it's still summer. It's still like a really nice warm evening. Plus, it's where she's from. She knows the area very well. She thinks nothing of it, so she sets off and starts walking home. And it said this is about 10:30. 10:30. Now, 40 kilometres away are 5 men who are in a bar playing pool. Now, the 5 men are John Travers, Michael Murdoch, Michael Murphy, Gary Murphy, and Leslie Murphy. Obviously, the last 3 are brothers. Now, John Travers, although being the youngest at 18, is actually the leader of this particular group of lads. Michael Murdoch is 19. He apparently copies John and is a bit in awe of him. He's kind of a right-hand man, but kind of in awe of him. He copies his tattoos and his piercings and, that kind of way. And then you've got the 3 Murphy brothers. The eldest, who's 33, is actually a prison escapee. So at this particular point in February 1986, he'd been on the run for 2 months. His 2 brothers, Gary was 28 and Leslie was 22. All 5 of them had quite long rap sheets. They were all known to the police. John, being the leader of the group, I don't think it's that he had any leadership qualities. It was just he was the most brutal of the 5. Long rap sheet. He assaulted women. He robbed. He'd been involved in drugs. He also had a thing of being cruel to animals. He just a vile boy, and he's only 18. Shocked me, it did, when I, talking about this lad. I know there's young lads in the stories I've done, but just out of a group of 5, especially when the eldest is the eldest of 3 brothers. He's 33, prison, he's escaped from prison. He on paper you would imagine would be the leader of the group, but no, it was John. Now, Anita's walking home, like I say, and it said that she was in the wrong place at the wrong time, because the 5 lads who'd been playing pool, having a couple of drinks, most people after that would go home or they'd go to a club. No, these decided they wanted to get some drugs, but they didn't have enough money to put fuel in their car to get the drugs. So they went out and stole a car. Why not? Got their drugs, but they thought a real kicker for the night, they wanted to rape a woman. How? Where does that pop in? And when they were driving along this particular road, and that's what I mean, Anita was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Anita was walking towards them, and they decided that she'd be the girl, and they just drag her into the car. Now, Anita obviously kicks up a fuss, she puts up a fight, she's screaming. And across the road from where this is happening are some houses. And there's a young lad and girl, brother and sister, who hear Anita screaming. And they come running out, and the lad, actually, I think he was only young, but he ran across, saying, leave her alone and everything. But they just got her in the car and drove off. So he really tried, and she was so close to being rescued. It happens a couple of times. Now the young brother and sister go back inside the house. They're obviously very upset over what they've just seen, and their older brother, who's a policeman, comes in, and of course they really agitated, go at him saying, what they've just seen, they've just seen some blokes dragging a girl into a car. And they give him a description, but they give him a description of a different model of a car. But he decides to go out and drive around and see if he can see anything that looks suspicious, anything that looks odd. Being a policeman, he'd kind of know what to look out for. In the meantime, after dragging Anita into the car, it said that she would have been stripped off very quickly. She was beaten. They broke her nose. There was bruising abrasions all on her cheeks. And they decided that this stolen car now needed petrol. And remember I said they had no money, but just to add insult to injury, they took Anita's money, and they had the audacity to pull into a fuel station and pushed her down into the footwells, behind the driver's seats. And John Travers had brought a knife along for the ride, so they threatened her with that and says, be quiet. And again, she's just, slightly missed being saved by the lad coming across. That didn't scare them. And now she's possibly 20 feet away from the petrol station and getting help there, but there's nothing she can do. I just think, you can't imagine what was going on in her head, being so close to being helped and then not being able to get the help. But they threatened her with the knife, and she didn't scream. She stayed quiet. And they got back in the car and they decided to drive to a very dimly lit area that they all knew of, because it was called Lover's Lane, and it wasn't far from where Anita lived at all. And it was kind of like farmland and woodland, and so they drive her to there. And as they get there, a car's coming up the hill. So they get her into the field, and the car coming up the hill is the young brother and sister's older brother, the policeman. And he pulls up, but they hadn't given him the right model of the car, so he looked at a car that was parked there, but thought that's not it. But he still shone his light. He had one of them big spotlights, and he shone that round, but didn't see anything. And he drove off. So again, so close. And what they'd done, like I said, they'd pushed her head into the long grass. They ducked, and the policeman, he drove back down the hill. He wasn't to know. And so now they're home free, aren't they? So they take her further into the field. They have to go over like a barbed wire fence, I think it is. And rather than lifting her over it, they actually push her through it, through barbed wire. She's naked, remember? So, it must have been awful. They bring her into the field. They rape and torture her. They rape her anally, for vaginally. And when they'd had enough, I think it was after about an hour, hour and a half, they decide, well, what are we going to do now? Why couldn't they have just left her? But they decided, because she'd seen their faces, their fault, and knew their names, their fault. You know, they blamed her, that she knew heard their names and had seen their faces. So they decided that she had to go, she had to be killed. Now, what I didn't mention about John Travers and the cruelty to animals that I mentioned earlier was that what he used to do, he used to buy sheep, and then he used to have sex with them. And then when he was done, he'd jump on the sheep's back, grab it by its head and slit its throat, and then cook it and eat it. I mean, so the lads, upon deciding that Anita had to go, you know, they couldn't possibly leave her. She could identify them all. She knew all their names. They all decide that it's going to be John Travers. And he said that, he doesn't say which one of them said it, but it was, do your thing, Travers. Do your thing. So John Travers gets on Anita's back, pulls her head back, and slits her throat. And it said that it was done so brutally that he nearly decapitated her. But there was not much left at the back. After doing this, they obviously leave Anita in the field, go back to the car, and they, you know, they've had a great time. Great time. It was just for kicks, you know. And they, when they get back to the car, they realise Anita's clothes are still in the car, so they go back to John Travers' house and burn all of Anita's clothes, and then get rid of the ashes. And then the car that they'd stolen, they then take not far down the road, but they take down the road where a lot of cars had left discarded anyway, and set fire to it. And as far as they're concerned, done. The knife's never been found. It said that they just threw it somewhere, but it's never been found. But yeah, they done what they needed to do. Let's go on about our lives. Let's not worry about it anymore. Well, Gary Lynch, Anita's dad, it was coming up to midnight, and he'd been expecting her home for, you know, a couple of hours by then. And although she, you know, she was a grown woman, she did stay out, but she always let them know. She always let, you know, her parents know. She'd moved back in with them after her marriage had ended. And, you know, she'd always let them know if she was staying out. So he had a really uneasy feeling about it. But by the next morning, and she hadn't turned up for work, and she was a very conscientious worker. She'd never not just turn in. You know, her work colleagues and Gary and Grace, her parents, knew there was something very, very wrong. And they phone the police and they make a report. 11 a.m, Tuesday, 4th of Feb, so 2 days later, a farmer notices that his cows are kind of huddled around a part of the field. So he goes over to see what they're looking at, and it's Anita's body. So he phones the police, and, you know, they come out, and before you know it, you know, there's a lot of departments there, and Anita had obviously already been reported missing by then. They had a photo of her from that Grace and Gary had given them, and when they checked the photo compared to obviously the girl in the field, they knew it was Anita. So they went round, and Anita still had a wedding ring on. So they took, the police took the rings off her fingers and brought the rings round to her house. And it was actually her younger sister who identified the rings. But they still had to obviously identify Anita herself. So Gary says he did that. They were trying to see, you know, who would be strong enough out of the parents, Gary and Grace, to go, and it was actually Gary who went. And throughout the whole interview, this couple were just so dignified, just so really lovely couple. You know, you can only imagine just how lovely she was based on her parents. You know, they just seemed like a really nice couple. And obviously devastating. And then hearing about how she died and what had happened to her. You know, you can't imagine. That's their baby girl. You know, it doesn't matter that she's in her 20s. She's still their baby girl. Well, the media get hold of the story then. And once the media have got hold of it, and some of the details of what had happened to Anita make it into the papers, the public go crazy. They go absolutely crazy at what's happened. You know, they're discussing not just that she was abducted and killed. It was the manner of how it was done and the torture she'd gone through. You know, it just the public were livid over it, understandably. So a couple of days after, an informant phones up the police and says that a car had been stolen by John Travers on that night, and there were some really distinctive alloys belonging to the car. But when the police went out to find the abandoned car, the car had been taken away. Obviously been removed by the tip removals or car removal. I don't know who would do it, but the car had gone. But they went round to John Travers' house. His name, obviously the informant had give his name. And when they got round there, what's on his car? The alloys. So, no, sorry, the alloys are actually on Les Murphy's car. Sorry, I got that wrong. The alloys are on Les Murphy's car, but there's a knife found at John Travers' house. Now, it's not actually the murder weapon, but it has got blood on it. And that's when he says it's the sheep. I kill sheep. So they actually bring in at that point 3 of them. They bring in John Travers, Les Murphy and Michael Murdoch, but not for Anita Cobby's murder, for the stolen car. They just need to get them in. And they start talking to John Travers about Anita Cobby. And the policeman in the interview does say, he says it put shivers down his back, because in a very evil tone, John Travers actually said the words, "I didn't slit that slut's throat." You know, and just awful. Now they know it's them. They know the other 2 Murphy brothers are involved as well, but it's all well and good knowing it. You've got to prove it. And they were struggling with what to do, so they kept John Travers in, but they released Les Murphy and Michael Murdoch on bail, but kept like a 24-hour watch on them to watch where they were going and stuff. Now, while he's in the jail, John Travers requests a female friend to bring him in some cigarettes or something. So the police phone her and arrange to meet her. And when they meet her, she starts talking straight away, really, and she says, you know, that John does assault women. You know, she does believe he's involved. She believes they're all involved. She gives up the other 2 Murphy brothers' names. She doesn't know for definite, but she's got a very good idea. But again, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. So what they do, they get her to wear a wire and go and sit and talk with John and see if he'll say anything. Tells her everything. Tells her everything. You know, right down to them saying, do your thing, Travers. You know, he's not sorry. He doesn't feel bad about it. Only thing he feels bad at is that the fact that he had to do it, that they left him to sort of do it. And now he's in prison and, well, jail and they're not, kind of thing. You know, it's nothing to do with Anita. Not one iota of remorse. So they then charge them all. They've got what they need then, and they charge them all 5 with the abduction and murder of Anita Cobby. They all kind of turn on John Travers, you know, but they all plead not guilty. And the public, oh, they wanted their blood. It showed that on March 16th, 1987, when they were being brought in, look, the crowd was like 5 deep of people just trying to get at these guys. Even the policemen on the show, they were like, it was quite scary. These people were rocking the car. You know, I think just how gruesome it was and just how, just no need. There was just such an unfair thing, and I think just everyone was just disgusted. And Anita was known by quite a few people, so, and her parents were known, and they were just such nice people. There was just utter disgust. Now, while they're in the dark, they're all laughing, they're all joking. Now, Gary and Grace were in the courtroom when the trial was on. Can you imagine watching them laughing and joking? But John's not stupid, and John changed his plea to guilty. The other four still pled not guilty, but he pled guilty. So he was kind of taken away to await sentencing. But all the rest of them, you know, put everyone through the trial, put the family through the trial. But on Tuesday, June the 16th, 1987, Thursday, June the 16th, 1987, was the sentencing. And all 5 got life. All 5. The judge was so disgusted. He actually said it was the worst case he'd come up against in sort of like 40 years or something. He was disgusted with the whole thing. And he actually put a stamp on all their sentences that they are never to be released. They're just that depraved. That showed that little remorse, like no remorse. I think them laughing and joking, and I don't know if they were putting on a front or they genuinely are just that vile. Well, they are that vile, but that, you know, just that really didn't care what time they got, or it was a front. But I reckon they would have regretted laughing and joking in the dark, because that would have gone against them. Because to see no remorse whatsoever, that's why he said they're never to be released, never to see this time of day. And I think Australia is very similar to here in the UK. You know, it's a very serious crime that gets that kind of sentence. Very serious. So, you know, that wouldn't have been taken lightly. Now, I did read somewhere today that there is, or there will be, a change in the law in Australia where life doesn't always have to mean life. Now, it doesn't mean these will get out. I think people were just worried, does that mean they'll get out? But I haven't read anywhere that you know, it's on the cards for them to be released at all. I haven't read that anywhere. Now, on the 21st of Feb 2019, Michael Murphy, remember the eldest of the 3 brothers, he actually died of a very painful disease, I believe, age 66. So, one down. Now, what's really sad, you know, remember me on about Anita's parents, you know, they were just, it's just so emotional listening to them both. You know, the dad seemed just so soft, and the mum seemed, it was just heartbreaking if you want to have a look. You know, they just seemed so dignified. You know, there wasn't any anger or hate, it would seem, in them. Even after all of that, it didn't seem like they were capable of hate, which again shows the difference, doesn't it? But on the 14th of September 2008, Gary Lynch died, aged 90. He had Alzheimer's. And on the 2nd of July 2013, Grace Lynch died, aged 88. You know, so they're all together now. The three of them are together now. And the other four monsters, you know, it is quite sad that Gary and Grace never got to see that Michael Murphy had died. Then again, I don't know how that would have made them feel, if anything. You know, I don't know. Like I say, there was no hate in them. So I couldn't imagine they'd be the type that would high-five that, but I don't know. The other four are still in prison as of today's day, and hopefully they'll remain there forever. What other sentence could you give people like that? Especially John Travers. Just deprived. I don't know, would the others have gone along with it if he hadn't have been there and egging it on, or would Anita have died at the end of it if it hadn't have been for him? Would any of the others have carried it out? I don't know, but I'm glad they all got the same sentence. I genuinely am. I don't know whether John thought he was clever pleading guilty. Maybe he thought he'd get a bit of a better deal. I don't know. But yeah, hopefully they'll never ever get out. Never. Just awful story when I was learning about it, and I just thought, oh, did you have to? You didn't have to kill. Oh, you didn't have to do any of it. These always leave me with more questions than answers. All of them do. All of the stories I do. It's just like, but why? I don't understand. And we'll never get the answer. You know, I don't think they have an answer for it. It's like the policeman says, it does seem she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and she paid with her life. Oh, just such a sad story. I know it's late going up and your notifications going off, but I just wanted to share this one with you. And once I got everything together, I thought, right, I'm gonna get it out there for you. So thank you for joining me again. I am getting another one together, awful, for you. So I'll put that one up soon. And I'd really appreciate it if you have stayed to the end. Long story, nearly 35 minutes. If you subscribe and put a like and comment if you'd like to, or if you've got any stories you'd like me to have a look at, I'd really appreciate that. See, no jingle tonight. No jingle at the end. Can't. What did I say? Someone else doing? Like, subscribe, comment, bell. And they have a bell there. I haven't got the bell. But bell. Oh, I've got to stop. I've got to stop trying to do it. I genuinely have. I think I'm really tired now. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good week. Thank you.